Just one more. This is the focus group.
They're all business, except when they're not. It's the focus group with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the focus group. Tim Bennett here, as always, with my good friend and co-host, Mr. John T. Nash, who may be picking up my slack as I've seemed to have lost my voice somewhere along the way, though I'm drinking some Trader Joe's green tea, John. I've thinking with some lemon that would soothe my vocal cords or something. So we'll see how we get through this. As you know, we are here every Wednesday, thanks to our sponsors and our friends, including Deep Discount, and later on in the show, as many of you know, September is Criterion Collection Month, thanks to our friends at the Criterion Collection and Deep Discount, and we'll be playing John Says Pick That Flick later on in the show for your chance to win some discs from the Criterion Collection. And until then, we've got our usual Caught My Eye, Business Birthday, and some other banter in between. So how are you, Mr. Nash?
I'm doing good, and you sound pretty good, actually. And I'm having a flashback to Tim and I went to we did a broadcast from the former Liberace Museum in Las Vegas years ago, and I actually almost lost my voice on that trip. And everybody kept saying, "Oh no, don't worry, it's just the desert voice, it's the dry air." I get back to New York, and it turns out I had a massive sinus infection.
Well, and the thing with you is you click off, boom, like you were clicked. You had clicked, and I remember trying to get you like, John. It was like Hillary Clinton trying to talk to Rumsfeld. I'm like, John, over here. Just like, I feel horrible. My goodness. No, we were. Yes. That was I remember that horrible. Listen, you and I have had a lot of illnesses in Vegas. I had my appendix out.
Oh my God, Tim!
You and I both got sick. You and I both got sick with respiratory illnesses at two different times. You that time at the Liberace Museum. Me the time we were doing that whirlwind tour of Vegas.
Actually, we both got sick on that trip. You were sick at the front end of it when we were staying at Planet Hollywood, and all the way up until the Edie interview at New York, because I think that was Zumanity. We were doing that, and then at the end of the trip,
go on.
At the end of the trip, I got the same thing. I got sick on the way home, and Bob had to pick me up at the airport, and but you know, we soldiered through, right?
Well, the worst thing for me is we had all of these impossible reservations to get at the best restaurants in Vegas, and you're bringing me saltines and Gatorade. And we could have gone. You even got to meet. I think you met R2D2 or somebody. You met somebody.
We had a Star Wars thing at the Bellagio that I got to experience. Yeah, it was.
But any play we wanted to see, any show we wanted to see, we did see Cher. But. Yeah, it was. I regret some of the ones we didn't make, but we had full access to Vegas. It was our town.
Yeah,
and I'm eating saltines
and by the way, it was a stacked trip. It was probably the closest to a presidential campaign you would ever get, meaning you had one thing after another. So I just want to thank our listener, Billy, who met me up in Ghent this weekend for the Ghent Fly-In. He introduced this to me back in 2021, maybe, or 2022. And we have a grass airstrip up by us called the Kleinkill Airfield. It's beautiful. And according to Billy, it's one of the nicest grass airstrips in the country. And that means small prop planes, biplanes, small craft can land and take off from there. And the fly-in is actually a celebration of those planes. And so it's like they do a pancake breakfast. One of these years I'm going to pay for the pancake breakfast and go
Did he fly in? Did he fly in with...
They drove in. Billy and his partner and their friend, they went to visit a friend in Pleasant Valley, which is south of us. They drove in for the event. And, before we left to meet Billy, Bob is in the kitchen, and he goes, I don't hear any planes. There's going to be no one at that fly-in. And I'm like, what do you... Because we're only 3 miles south of the airport, so we drive... Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We drive to the airport, and sure enough, there's 2 big rows of planes. There's 2 helicopters. Planes are taking off and leaving. There's 2 biplanes. They're really cool to look at. So we met with Billy. We walked around. We got to talk to some of the pilots. I asked him a lot more of my questions, which Billy is always happy to answer. If there is some part on the plane, like a vent in the wing or something, I'm like, what does this do? And he explains it perfectly and patiently, I must say, very patiently. And we had a great time. And then Billy gave me homemade banana pudding for my birthday.
Oh, wow.
And he wanted me to mention to you that there is crumbled vanilla wafers on top of the pudding. He said somehow that he goes, mention to Bennett that this also had vanilla wafers crumbled.
Well, because
on
I
top.
said to him, I said, I love banana pudding. Because he had told me he was going to possibly see you guys. And then he said he was deciding between the lime key pie and the banana pudding. And I said, oh, I love banana pudding with vanilla wafers on them or whatever. So that must have been his ode to putting the vanilla wafers on them.
So we had it for dessert on Sunday after lunch, and I'm watching Bob carefully because Bob is very critical of things, and he goes, "Man, this is really good. I wonder what's in here." I said, "Well, bananas for one,
Yeah, probably bananas, vanilla pudding, maybe. I don't know."
And then last night we had it for dinner, or I'm sorry, Sunday night we had it for dinner. We had it as dessert after dinner, and Bob was like licking the bowl practically. He goes, "This is really good." He goes, "You got to thank Billy." So. Thank you, Billy and Edmund and Ben. It was a lot of fun seeing you guys on Saturday at the Flying. And I'm now convinced that I have one of my first bucket list things to do when we officially are not working anymore.
What's that?
I want to learn how to fly a plane.
That'd be good for you because you're very technical. So that'd be good for you.
Yes. And I think that this is one of those things you can do when you retire someday because you'll have time to do it. And actually, if I were going to be upstate more than here in the city, upstate's perfect. We have an airport that actually has a flying school. And there's a lot of technical stuff, and believe me, I bet it would be scary as all get out to take off and land, but I also think it would be really fun. And the best part, Tim, is Billy told us from where we are upstate to Rehoboth might be like an hour and a half flying time.
Oh my God, is that all?
And then Bob's like, that's better than the drive.
Yeah.
So you would rent a plane.
I've thought about that. Yeah, rent a plane down. Or get your own. They're not that expensive.
Says Tim.
Yeah, you get a used one. I'm sure you pick something up. That'd be good for you to fly. I don't know. I guess I would ride with you. There's a lot of friends I know that, for instance, my friend Brian Roman, if he took flying lessons, I'd be a little leery. Brian's a little loosey-goosey. But you I would fly with. But
well, you know why you say that? I don't know if I've mentioned this. Our listeners probably know over the years. Tim basically taught me how to drive. Like my dad took me out in the evenings when he got home from work. So I learned how to drive at night, which is really a pain. But Tim taught me a lot more than my dad did and taught me how to drive standard. And he would drill into my head like, every time I was behind the wheel, he's like, you got to pay attention. You got to pay attention. You got to pay. You're driving the car. You have passengers. I mean, it was like safety first Clyde all the time. But hey, look, it pays off, right?
Here. Hey, I wanted to change the subject here, but I didn't know if you noticed this. I had CNN on, CNN and a couple of other cable channels, probably CNN and MSNBC on over the weekend. And I noticed a new trend, or maybe I'm just noticing it, but I don't know if you picked up on it. But they apparently now have no problem saying cuss words on there. They actually said shit, and they used the word F-U-C-K several times on
Hosts
CNN.
Or guests?
Yes, the hosts. There was some show on CNN on Saturday night, and they were talking about the debate, and they said the look when Kamala Harris looked at Trump and said, "This former president." Remember, she did
she did that thoughtful look,
right? And they said, "You know what she wanted to say, that motherfucker." And they said, "Yeah, she wanted to call him a motherfucker." And I thought, Richard and I looked at each other. I said, "Is this on the airways?" And then they've now been saying very loosely on the morning shows and everything, the word "shit" seems to come about. I don't like it. I don't know what.
Neither do I. Neither do I.
Yeah, I find it odd that they've decided that now that it's okay to do that, I guess.
It's
not cable, right? Cable, or that you expect it maybe on HBO or something on Bill Maher, but not on CNN or MSNBC or.
The way we were raised, if Tim and I were in a class, or if we said something like that, we would definitely have had someone say the word language,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Well, we weren't allowed to swear at home at all. I mean, if we swore at home,
cuss
we got
words?
cracked. No. Even the word, my dad even considered the word snot a cuss word. S-N-O-T.
That's kind of a kid's word,
I thought so too, but I got cracked, so I didn't say it anymore. I never used the word snot or snotty.
I was just telling Bob the story, and I told Billy actually up at the Ghent Flying because I heard some cuss words up there, and I used to work with a girl named Karen Spivey. She was from the South, sorority girl, hair, the pearls, the whole bit. And she told me the story about when she was a child, she had a record that she would play all the time. And her grandmother kept saying to her, Karen Spivey, you turn down that blasted hi-fi. I don't want to hear those cuss words anymore. Well, her dad came home, and it had a cuss word in the song. Her dad came home, demanded the record, departed, came back about 10 minutes later and said, you can now play your record as often as you want. And what he did was he had sanded the grooves off.
Oh my God! I wonder what the song was.
I don't remember what the song was. I wish I knew.
Right, probably "The Bitch Is Back" by Elton John. I always felt that was a bit inappropriate too, but I like the song. So, Mr. Nash, without further ado, what caught your eye this week?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
I'm surprised this didn't catch your eye either, since you're a car guy. But maybe because I like cars and I like Lego, this is how it caught my eye. So Lego, working with McLaren, built a full-scale drivable version of the McLaren P1. So at first I thought, this is kind of like, how could they do this, right? So the car is an iconic powerhouse. It has top speeds of 217 miles per hour. That's the McLaren, the actual car. The 1/8 Lego had a 1/8 scale Technic model that you could buy if you're a hobbyist. It's a 1/8 scale car made of normal bricks, but they decided to build a full scale one, and they wanted it to work. So it took 23 specialists from both companies to collaborate over 8,344 hours of development and construction, followed by another 2,210 hours of production time. The bright yellow car uses 342,817 Lego Technic elements spread across 393 different types, 11 of which were molded specifically for the project itself. The car still required a steel frame and real tires to actually function, but that's about it when it comes to non-Lego parts. Even the engine of this full-size P1 recreation is composed of 8 electric motor packs, each with 96 Lego power function motors to imitate the original McLaren's V8, while offering a nod to the P1's legacy as the world's first hybrid supercar. All told, the Lego Technic car weighed in at about 2,690 pounds, roughly 385 pounds lighter than the actual racing vehicle. Once assembled, McLaren entrusted the car to its team racer Lando Norris. I like Lando. Lando Calrissian from The Empire Strikes Back, but Lando Norris. After arriving at the UK Silverstone circuit, Norris managed to complete an entire lap around the 3.66-mile track at a top speed of 40 miles an hour. Well, that's only a fraction of its namesake. The Lego Technic garnered a number of notable achievements. It is the first time a Lego scale has successfully driven around corners. So this, full-scale mock-up, they were all like, yay, it goes around corners. And it was the first time it was officially piloted by a Formula One racing driver. So I thought this was just one of those really funny things that someone says, hey, why don't we build an exact replica in Lego of the McLaren P1? And they let them do it.
How much time it would have taken? Gosh, I can't imagine.
They said here it was over 8,000 hours of planning and development, and then 2,000 hours of actual production time between the two teams. So I think they took everybody's. Let's say you had 10 or 15 people on the project, and everybody did it over X number of days. They would multiply that to get the number of hours. But yeah,
I have a friend who has a McLaren, and I never understood it. It's very difficult to get in and out of, and as you said, reaches a top speed of 220 or something like that.
Yeah, super.
I was like, well, the speed limit. Where are you going? And he lives in a city, and so I think it's just a look at me sort of thing. Mm-hmm. I don't know whether it's anything beyond that, but I just never understood the purpose of a car like this. But that's just
owning something that fast and powerful. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think it's cool that they did this Lego mock-up of it to get attention, but I never understood some of these supercars, whether people just did them just to collect, or you have all this money that you just want to spend it on something. But I thought, where are you going to drive a car 212 miles an hour?
There are places out west you could, right?
I used to go to the test tracks in Tokyo, and we used to go as fast as you could. And, once you get above 140, you start thinking, airbags and everything. This thing's,
I just love the cock of your head. Once you get above 1 feet, I could die.
No, we would take the WRXs out on these tracks, and they were banked certainly very high, and the whole gist was how fast can you get them going, and they had a top speed, I think, of around 220 or 224 at that time or something, but I remember being pretty cautious about it because I thought, man, you can lose it pretty quick when you're going that fast if you're not a professional driver. But
even the pros make little mistakes, and rare, but you don't want to be in the driver's seat when that happens, right?
Yeah. So mine can be any different. It comes to us from our friends in the UK and Wales, and there's this woman. Her son, I shouldn't say this woman, but mother of two, died after eating marshmallows during the Who Can Fit the Most in Your Mouth contest. So there was a DJ called Roly Poly in Wales that was doing
you can't make this up. The DJ's name was
Roly Poly. And he does these different contests. And so he was doing one for the Bordeaux Rugby Football Club last October in the UK. And so this woman, her son is a member of the club, and they were doing a fundraiser. So this week's fundraiser was this DJ, Roly Poly, would call up people out of the audience, and then you had 60 seconds to see how many marshmallows you could fit in your mouth or swallow. So this kid's mother ended up doing it. Natalie Buss is her name. She ended up getting on stage, and she stuffed all these pink and yellow marshmallows in her mouth, and then went into distress and left the stage and collapsed. They ran to get a defibrillator for her, but the issue really was that the marshmallows had got caught in her throat. She couldn't breathe, and she died. So, of course,
Tim,
the rugby team didn't make any money that night. It was a sad loss for the rugby team and poor Natalie. She lost her life as well. Said she was a good mother, good person, and so forth. But she was taking one for the team, and they said that it's apparently well known that these marshmallow contests that should be banned, and they've tried to ban them in other places for the same reason. So Roly Poly has decided that he's going to take this particular contest off the roster as things to do for fundraisers, and they're not sure yet whether they're going to charge him with anything. But they said some are saying she did this on her own volition, that she decided to take the challenge. Roly Poly's been doing these things for about 15 years.
Would you ever agree to a marshmallow eating contest? I mean, I have trouble dealing with two marshmallows sometimes, because of the consistency, and that's what causes the problems, right?
Yeah. Well, they say what happens is they get in your mouth and they start to swallow. They said she was doing quite good. The audience was cheering her on. Music was going, pumping. Next thing they know, she was on the floor. Couldn't breathe. They thought she was having a heart attack, but at the end of the day, the paramedics realized that she was clogged up with marshmallows.
She blocked her own airways, right?
I'm trying not to laugh, but
No, Tim, anyway. This is one of those weird, and this comes to us from the UK, right?
Yeah, the UK. Yeah, it's rugby club was trying to. The rugby club sent out their sincerest and heartfelt condolences for the family and the close friends for all those impacted. They were in their thoughts all day. It's a tragic turn.
Thoughts and prayers. They're not going to unblock the airway from the marshmallows. That's like hot dogs is one thing, and eating contests in general always perplex me. You're gonna claim to be the gold medal winner of the person who ate the most fill in the blank. I mean,
right. Well, apparently this marshmallow thing has been a problem for years. I never heard about it before. I don't know if you did, but apparently they've been trying to ban people from doing these marshmallow contests. It's very popular. If
I could say, when Tim sends me I don't know the content of what caught his eye, but he'll send me like a picture and a headline. And one of the pictures was the photograph of the kid's mom, the woman. And then there was a which we just showed a moment ago, the picture of like a cartoon thing of her mouth filled with marshmallows. And I'm like, and I'm setting this up for the show, and I'm thinking to myself, what? I'm going to be dead curious to see where the marshmallows came in. Well, yeah, they played a key role, right?
Key role, yeah. So be careful with marshmallows. Don't do a marshmallow eating contest, is the moral of that story. Hey, many of you know Deep Discount's a partner of ours here on the Focus Group. And September is Criterion Collection Month. So without further ado, I'm going to let Mr. Nash take it over and play a game we call John Says Pick That Flick.
We're going to let your voice take a little break. You're doing
Take
great,
a rest.
by the way. It's not as bad as me shutting down in the desert when I have desert voice. So thank you to Deep Discount and to the Criterion Collection for providing all the gifts or the prizes for this month. We play a game called Pick That Flick. Used to do it on Sirius XM Satellite Radio when Tim and I were live on Saturdays. It's very simple. I'm going to play a audio clue from a movie. If you have a guess as to the title of that film, send your guess to letters@focusgroupradio.com, letters@focusgroupradio.com. Include your mailing address if it's an email you don't check too often, or I'll email you if you want, and I'll get your address if I don't have it. So that's it, folks. The rules are pretty simple, but the game's always very challenging. I will say, before we play the clue, that everybody has been doing fantastic. Some movies get more guesses than others, but I'm still amazed that everybody gets it. So here we go for this week's Criterion Collection clue for Pick That Flick.
That was Karma, you little slut girls, you little freshman sluts! Get up! Get up! Up!
I love when Tim laughs at a clue. I don't know that you know where this is from, but you
Did she say you little freshman sluts?
Yeah, I'll play the clue again. We're going to do it again, folks.
That was Karma, you little slut girls, you little freshman sluts! Get up! Get up! Up!
When I was picking this
I don't know it, but I got to see it.
Yeah, when you know. So, I also want to mention that I'm going to tell everybody, I'm going to play all the clues at the end of the month. Once we're done with the contest, I'll identify every film for you. I'll let Tim know beforehand. But when I grabbed this clue, Bob and I had picked about 3 different ones from this particular movie, but every time we heard this one, we couldn't stop laughing because just of the energy and the craziness.
Have I seen this movie, do you think?
I am pretty sure you've seen the movie. Although you might not have. Tim and I have different movie tastes, but I think you might have seen it. Right. And if you haven't, I'll tell you what it is, and you're going to want to see it.
Yeah.
All right, so we do have a new release this week, folks, and it's a movie that is really intriguing. Now, so this is Caligula, the Ultimate Cut. If you're old enough to remember when Caligula came out, back in the day, like in 1980, it was a movie that caused a lot of, it was a big uproar because it was Caligula. There was the sex barge. There was all this stuff going on. You had actors like Malcolm McDowell, Peter O'Toole, just Helen Mirren, John Gielgud, like an all-star cast, right? But the film was really contentious and not well received. And one of its financiers was Bob Guccione of Penthouse magazine. So that, there's lots of flesh to be seen. So Caligula, the Ultimate Cut on Blu-ray, tormented by the murder of his family, the young, wary Caligula, played by Malcolm McDowell, eliminates his devious adoptive grandfather, Tiberius, played by Peter O'Toole, and seizes control of the declining Roman Empire as it descends into a spiral of depravity, destruction, and madness. Restoring the complete performances of McDowell and O'Toole, along with fellow film legends Helen Mirren and John Gielgud, this extensive reconstruction of the notorious 1980 spectacle, based on the original narrative as conceived by writer Gore Vidal, had its world premiere at the 2023 Cannes Film Festival, showcasing the sumptuous costume designs of the 2-time Oscar winner Danilo Donati. He was responsible for Fellini's Casanova and Romeo and Juliet. Caligula, the Ultimate Cut, features an entirely new score by Troy Sterling Nyes, as well as a new animated title sequence by graphic designer Dave McKeon. Also included is the 1980 theatrically released version of the film, so you could see the two side by side if you want to. I'm sure Lauren had a lot of fun selecting this for us to profile as the new release, but this film is one of those films in film history that I think does need to be seen because of just how over-the-top, extravagant, and crazy it is. But, well worth it, folks.
I remember all the controversy.
Do you remember
around it? Yeah, I remember it. So it'll be a good one to recheck out.
But the ultimate, and it's on Blu-ray for $24.99 from Deep Discount. So recapping for you all, it's the Criterion Collection month here on the Focus Group and with Deep Discount. And that means we play the game Pick That Flick, which we did a little earlier. You could do a little quick rewind to hear the clue. And if you know the name of the movie that clip came from, send it to us and you may win a prize. And just as a reminder, the new release this week is Caligula, the Ultimate Cut. I'm picking my copy up soon. So we're going to take a super quick break, and when we return, we have a business birthday and we have 2 shop talks that are quick, but I think you'll enjoy them. So stay with us.
You're listening to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com. Now back to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Available pretty much everywhere.
Hey, welcome back to The Focus Group. Tim Bennett here with my good friend and co-host, Mr. John T. Nash. We are The Focus Group in our 16th year. You heard that right, 16. 16 years we've been doing this, John.
Tim, it's a sweet 16.
Yeah, exactly. People talk about podcasts, and we've got 8 podcast series. We've 16 years, thousands of podcasts you can download for free over at focusgroupradio.com, including our 20-minute podcast, TFG Unbuttoned, which is 3 stories in and out. But without further ado, Mr. Nash, we've got our business birthday.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
So born today, September 18th, in 1844. Cassius,
Wait, 1844. I want this to be remembered because when you see when Tim puts this up, 1844. Okay.
1844. Born 1844 in Antwerp, New York. He died at age 89 in Staten Island. His name is Cassius Marcellus Coolidge. A virtual unknown. Many people don't know who he is, but you probably know his work, or you certainly know his work. He's an American artist famous for humanizing animals in his artwork, and particularly his series of portraits of dogs playing poker. And so many of you know what, we've all seen those pictures of the dogs playing poker. He was known as Cash, or Cash with a K. So his name, Cassius Coolidge, was spelled with a C for the first and last name, but he thought it would be comical if he made them a K. I don't know why, but maybe in the 1840s that was a funny thing. So he was raised as a Quaker in Philadelphia and New York. And as I said, he's virtually unknown, but also credited with the sort of artwork that we would now classify as kitsch, or American kitsch. He left the family farm in the 1860s. He had many careers. He worked as a druggist, a sign painter. He even founded a bank and a newspaper. And he started painting dogs in human situations. And he started that in his 20s as an artist. He really had no formal training. He was doing some work as a cartoonist for the local newspaper and decided to draw these dogs and other caricatures. But he's also credited with creating comic foregrounds. So essentially, you know where you stick your head in the hole, the plywood, and there's a body around it. He started that, he called at the time novelty photographs, which combined the portrait of a sitter with a caricaturized body. And
you know what's interesting about that? Someone had to start it. I mean, we've all stood behind it and put our face through the hole and ha ha ha.
So he was able to patent that, if you can believe it or not, patent that thing. They said that to this day, you'll see these photo stand-ins either at Midways or carnivals or people in different, you go to a tourist trap and there's some, bikini-clad thing you stick your head in, get your picture taken. What happened, though, is he had done these dog portraits. He started them in the early 1900s, and he got contacted by a firm called Brown Bigelow. And they primarily produced advertising calendars for people like the Boy Scouts, the Red Cross. They used a lot of Norman Rockwell images. They also produced the original Hoyle playing cards, and also were the largest producer of calendars for pinups in the 1940s, the pinup calendars. So they contacted him to try to figure out, one of their clients was the cigar industry, not a particular brand, but the industry of cigars. And they were trying to encourage more people to smoke cigars. So they did a series of these portraits of him with the dogs playing poker. There were 16 oil paintings that they had commissioned him to do starting in 1903. And it encapsulates the imaginative blend of human-like dogs engaging in poker. And this theme resonated within the American public, and it says, as we know today, as home decor or kitsch. The dogs presented were usually presented were larger breeds like collies, Great Danes, St. Bernards, and Mastiffs. Humans did not appear in any of the paintings, and female dogs were rarely used. According to the New York Times, the dogs are depicted as upper middle class lawyers and businessmen, and they drank and smoked at the table. The dogs would sit in leather chairs in dimly lit rooms adorned with ceiling lights. So they said this animalizing of humans really was a precursor for Disney and a number of other people who would give human characteristics or life to animals. So he had a number of pieces of artwork over the years, and they weren't really collectible, but recently he sold the 1894 poker game sold at Sotheby's in 2015 for close to $700,000. There was another auction in New York. There was a pair of these paintings they thought might bring in $30,000 to $40,000. They brought in close to $600,000. So these artworks have become very, very collectible now. And if you happen to have, he did a number of things, of course. But I laugh because we've all seen these paintings. They said they've been mimicked and copied many times over the years. But I thought it was a pretty cool start for him as a business birthday, somebody different as an artist.
I thought this was brilliant when you sent this over because we, as you just said, frequently imitated, right?
Yep.
But I love going to the source, right? The original guy who comes up with the idea to paint dogs playing poker and smoking cigars. And I also like the fact, Tim, that it hooks into marketing and advertising.
Yep. I never knew that was they were originally done to help encourage people to smoke
cigars. It's just so excellent business birthday. I'm surprised he's never popped up before.
Yeah, I was surprised too.
And, good long life, 89. I mean, yeah, sure, he could have gone a few more years, but that's, and he's left us a legacy of dogs playing cards and smoking.
Yeah.
You gotta love, right?
There you have it. So we have two quick shop talks today. The first one Mr. Nash had found, and I was trying to figure this out because it seemed to be a little contradictory. But the headline is America's stores are winning the war on shoplifting. And so, Mr. Nash, I'll let you take this away if you can.
Yeah, so basically, we all knew that during the pandemic and right after lockdown and things started to ease up and get back to normal, retailers started expressing a lot of alarm and dismay at the amount of shoplifting or shrinkage that was going on. And we all saw videos of people doing smash and grab, where they'll go into a store and they'll just take a bunch of stuff. And in fact, there was a lot of research done that indicated that a lot of this retail theft was being done primarily with some products that people would then take and resell on Amazon and do things like that. So it was very coordinated, and it wasn't like just a random individual coming in, taking something and leaving. And we heard all about this. And in fact, Target said that this organized theft behavior by groups stealing merchandise has put a dent in its profit a while ago for $500 million. And Target closed 9 stores. And the 9 shops they closed, they claimed that theft and organized retail crime, that's the word I was looking for, organized retail crime, was the main reason behind the closures because it threatened worker and customer safety and made business unsustainable. But now the message has changed a bit, and it seems like retailers have gotten a handle or a grip on merchandise lost or stolen, which they now call shrinkage or shrink. And the thing that Tim said about being a little contradictory is interesting because now they're wondering if there really was an uptick in shrinkage or theft because they've gone back and they've looked at their inventory systems and they've tightened it up a bit, and they realized that sometimes what they called shrinkage was the fact that they weren't accounting for inventory properly. So something might have been in a storeroom, but it wasn't showing up on a computer. Oh, it's been stolen. No, it's sitting in the storeroom. Is that what you meant by contradictory?
That, and then they also made mention later on in the article about how first they said that shoplifting or shrinkage was down, but then they said the first half of 2024 it was up.
Yeah.
But they also blamed, maybe it could have been, as you said, that they just weren't managing the inventory correctly, or during the pandemic, what they thought might have been shrinkage was just lack of having goods in inventory. So I thought that was right. The one thing that it did say, which I was glad to see, was it said that they did a survey and said that 55% of people found that when they encountered products that were locked up, like deodorant or toothpaste or common everyday items, if people saw the item locked up, they would generally want to buy the product elsewhere, which I do the same thing, because people can't compare. You can't compare ingredients. You can't compare price, and you got to flag down a clerk to open up the case for you. I hate that there's so many things, particularly in cities. I don't know if I'm sure in New York it happens, in Philly. I've even seen it down here in Rehoboth, believe it or not. A couple of stores have popular deodorants and so forth behind lock and key. I'll just as soon then go order it online or something, or find a place where I can buy it. I don't want to try to find a clerk to try to open it up and then stand there while I'm looking at something. I don't know about you.
Oh, nope. Hey, I'm guilty. And the last time I had to buy a bunch of stuff at a local pharmacy, a gentleman and I were waiting to have a clerk come to open one of the plastic things, and he said, "What are you getting?" I said, "A couple of bars of Ivory soap."
Yeah.
And I said, "What are you getting?" He goes, "Body wash." He goes, "Both." He goes, "You don't seem like a thief to me." And we were both laughing about the fact that, Ivory soap and something else is behind plastic, because it just doesn't seem like something you would go in and steal. But I guess when you decide to put everything on a shelf behind a plastic thing with a key, everything's suspect to it. Yeah. So the overall, though, the article did say that retail theft has been on the decline for some time now. So I read stories like this and I'm like, wow, the press really loves to run with a headline, and that headline was, retail theft is going through the roof and organized crime. And it turns out that it's a multi-factor problem, and maybe it wasn't as bad as everybody was claiming it was. And theft is bad to begin with, but you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah. No, I was surprised about that too, where they essentially said that it was over-reported.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
For
That's
lack
it,
of
Tim.
a better
Yeah.
word, or fake news, as somebody else might say. But he certainly was pushed. The other one, this was just a quick story that we found. Campbell's Soup Company is deciding this November at their board meeting, because they're a public company shareholders meeting, that they're going to eliminate. It's known as the Campbell Soup Company. And they're going to eliminate the name soup from their name, and they're going to have to vote on it. I didn't know if this was just a PR play or if this is really big news. What did you think about this, by taking the name soup off of, so to just be the Campbell's Company instead of Campbell's Soup Company?
Okay, so this one, I loved when you sent this over, Tim, because for years now, I have referred to Campbell's as just Campbell's.
Right.
Now, I know that there's Campbell's Soup, but I've always referred to the company as Campbell's. Hey, pick up a So in many ways, I'm wondering if the consumer was ahead of them in terms of how they thought of the brand. And Campbell's as a company owns many other products under their umbrella, like they own something called Cape Cod, which is like a fish thing. Goldfish is with them. So they have Kettle Brand chips, Pacifico Foods, Pepperidge Farm, Prego, Snyder's of Hanover, which is the pretzels, the whole bit. So when I look at the range of stuff they have, and by the way, Tim, I think you and I went to the Cape Cod potato chip factory.
Yeah, that's who they own. They own the Cape Cod potato chips.
Yeah,
which they bought. And Lance is also a snack food. Remember those orange crackers with the peanut butter in them, the cheese peanut butter crackers? They're famous for that. Milano cookies.
I seem to remember the Campbell's or the Cape Cod chip tour being a bit of a disappointment. We got a free bag of chips, but
it's a greasy mess. Remember the greasy windows and everything?
We were in the car, and you're like, "Ugh, I get the egg."
It was gross. I've never really bought chips from them since. It was kind of a bush league little tour, wasn't it? I mean, you walked in and you saw the chips are shooting out, and the window's all greasy from the. I'm thinking, oof.
It wasn't anything like when Tim and I did the tour of Jelly Belly.
No, Jelly Belly was unbelievable. Remember?
Jelly Belly was a lot of fun. We had a private tour. We were out there for the wine in the vineyard, out in the vineyard.
Yep.
And we knew that we could drive the Jelly Belly. We had a great time there, and we're like, hey, why don't you sponsor us?
They did for a little while.
Well, they provided us with jelly beans. They
jelly
provided
beans
us with those icky ones. Because there was
the
one
person
jelly bean
we worked
called,
with went away.
Yeah, that's right. That's what happens. She loved us, but remember
she said people would eat dirt. Like there was one woman who used to eat dirt. And people had these odd fetishes, and so they made a dirt jelly bean, and the woman couldn't get enough of them.
So the ones that were bad were they dirt, they had snot, they had a few other ones that were really
throw up.
Oof. Yeah, yes.
Eating that junk.
Anyways, back to Campbell's for a second. These rebrand things happen not too often in the life of a storied brand like Campbell's, but I'm even looking at some of their soups and stuff, and I know the company's Campbell's Soup, but as I said, we've referred to Campbell's as just Campbell's for a long time. So this is one of those things that I think they do. They make a big flurry about it, but how many people are really going to pay attention, do you think?
Yeah, I didn't do the research. I probably should have, but I think Campbell's makes a lot of sense. As you said, people call it Campbell's. Yeah. I think PepsiCo makes a lot of sense. The one I used to always scratch my head about was Mondelez, when they developed that one from Oreos.
That was the Oreos?
I'm sure it must have come from some holding company, or maybe it's South American or something. But I often wondered how that became the holding company name. You can understand some of the other ones.
Could you imagine being in the boardroom and someone said, how about Mondelez? Like, who even came up with that? Like, Tim and I know people that work for naming companies. They sit around all day and they name things. Like, I don't know how you would come up with Mondelez, but...
Well, I'm sure it was a combination of something, right? I mean, it had to have been. I'm pulling it up here to see. $26 billion company. I'm sure I'd have to read it. It had its origins in craft foods. The name's derived from the Latin word mundus, meaning world, and delice, meaning fanciful modification of the word delicious. So delicious foods, Mondelez. There you go, John.
All right. I think that means it's sort of a portmanteau, a word that... means two things that are put together and made up. It's a made-up word, right?
Made up word, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Mondelez.
Well, there you go, friends. We have store theft, shoplifting, for lack of a better term, is seemingly on the downswing, even though it may have never really been as bad as people claim because of a couple little issues there. And the Campbell's Soup Company is just changing to the Campbell's Company. So we're going to wrap it up there for the week. We want to thank you for joining us here on the Focus Group. A big thank you to Deep Discount and to the Criterion Collection for allowing us to play the Pick That Flick game this month, where we give you a clue to a movie, you guess where it came from, and you win a Criterion disc. Get to Deep Discount by going to our site, focusgroupradio.com, clicking on the Deep Discount logo, and start your shopping experience there. The release this week, by the way, the new release is the movie Caligula, which originally came out. It's Caligula Revisited. I want to make sure I get that title right because they read it. Yeah, Caligula, the ultimate cut on Blu-ray. Scandalous film when it came out. I'm dying to see the recut and the new soundtrack because I don't, sometimes you wonder, like, did the movie not do well in editing or something? So we'll see what happens there. But I want to remind everybody, if you're driving, don't text and drive. Arrive alive, and we will see you next week here on the Focus Group.
It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.